Commissioners? So 17, and I don't have all these rules memorized. so
Really
I have-
quickly, though,
Yeah.
just to clarify, because sometimes I know when we don't have a fourth week meeting, so the second study session, for a while, it was being treated like we were breaking the rules, but that's not actually in the charter that we meet twice a month for study sessions.
Correct.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that in public, so
Right.
we,
Yeah. So 17 through 19, public comment at study sessions and special meeting. So unlike a regular meeting where public comment is taken during agenda items, there's just the public comment at the end. And then Rule 18 is the suspending of the rules that Lauren alluded to. And the following rules may be suspended only upon the vote of 6, which is Rule 9, which is consideration of referred matters at special meetings, Rule 11, consideration of referred matters at special meetings, and Rule 18, suspension of rules. Rule number 12 cannot be suspended because it's required by Michigan law. And then Rule 19 is amending. You can amend your rules.
okay.
How can I support you? So a couple of items that have come up, potential modifications for you guys to consider, is the number of commissioners required to add an item to an agenda. So currently, to add an item to a regular agenda, it's a single commissioner, while study sessions and special meeting, again, require 3. So you can modify that. The other is establishing a deadline for submission of agenda items from a commissioner to our office, so we have enough time to prepare it to put it on the agenda. So because we publish on Thursday, getting something, Wednesday at noon is kind of heart-jarring.
So we could establish a rule on that. The other thing to just make clear, though, is when a commissioner or 3 commissioners request to have something on the agenda and have a memo in the packet, it doesn't inherently mean that staff has to spend time on it. And I think that that's good to note for 2 reasons, because then if they are submitting something, let's say we've changed rules even on a Monday, staff is not dropping everything to do that, but also during the discussion, that is something that the public can be made aware of as well, that, this maybe, I've never known a commissioner to like leapfrog and put aside most process, but we need to make, that hasn't always had time to be vetted by legal or things like that, so suggestions in it might actually not be applicable in the state of Michigan, for example. So I think that's an important differential to make note of just while we're going over rules, is that when commissioners do request, it's not inherently staff-driven or staff-informed. So, go ahead, Lance.
Deb has-
No, that's okay. I just wanted to point out, in rule number 17, it specifically states that the comments of any member of the public or any special interest group may be limited to the time to 5 minutes. And I know we traditionally do 3 minutes, so I just wanted to
Oh, that's a
clarify
good
if
one,
that
too,
we
that we
wanted
could-
to be consistent, or that doesn't have to be anything that's considered this evening, but just wanted to bring that up.
That's a good point,
as
too.
a point of clarification.
Yeah, Lance, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much of us establishing like a when to submit by, but I do notice that, and I wonder if there's any history here, being a new commissioner, so I appreciate you bringing this to us. The inconsistent publishing deadlines, I feel like the 11:59 on a Thursday is unduly unfair to staff.
Yes.
I'm
When
not
the
staying
other,
up that late.
when, for a, is that for a study session? When a regular meeting where we actually take action is 5 o'clock, like what? That just doesn't make sense to me. So I would be open to maybe making those the same.
I mean, internally, our process is, my goal is to publish on Thursdays between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
There are the rare occasions where we're scrambling last-minute information, and it has to occur after 5. So I don't know that 5 p.m. is, that's
For a
probably
7 p.m., let's split some hairs.
like
and-
Yeah.
7 or 8 would probably better. Yeah, 11:59 is a little odd.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I saw a lot of heads nodding for that one in particular, would like to see that brought back.
Also, second one, inconsistencies. I don't know why we make the study session so punitively challenging to put an agenda item on it when it's something for us to study. 3 commissioners seems like a lot to me when it takes one to put something on a voting agenda. You know, I feel like we risk the potential for round robining if like I'm trying to bring something up and I go to Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Shaw, and then maybe one of them is like, nope. Now I'm like, Mitch, can we throw a dog a bone? And I know that there's a procedure in place where we email our city clerk,
Yes.
but that doesn't necessarily probably always happen. And I just feel like we're edging on the side of like this could potentially turn into round robining if it's 3 people required, and it just doesn't seem consistent with. I think historically, I actually asked Benjamin about this, and he said that it was just to be consistent with the amount of people needed to call a special meeting.
Correct.
But I don't know. I don't know if that we already have study sessions on the second Monday of every month. So why not make it easier? Might split the difference on those two. I don't know what that looks like, but I'd just be open to something different.
So we could bring that, Laura had her hand up, and then Mitch, and then Jackie.
I'm wondering, also a new commissioner, but I'm wondering if that might also relate to Amy's earlier comments about just because we put it on the agenda doesn't mean that staff is going to spend time on it. And so if it's a study session, it maybe there was a requirement for more commissioners because of the expectation that staff would be involved in pulling together information that we can actually study. I'm not sure if that's relevant or not. I agree with you, there should be some consistency between one commissioner to place something on a regular meeting versus 3 to a study session. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but if there is the expectation that by placing an agenda on the study session agenda that staff will be involved in pulling together information to help us study that topic, it would seem like we wouldn't want to drop that minimum to a low level like 1.
Mitch,
Yeah,
and
I
then Jackie
would-
and Heather.
Going off that specific thing, I'd be in favor of having it be 2 commissioners for both study session and regular agendas, because I see that as parallel to having a motion and then somebody seconding it. It doesn't mean that both people, whether it's an agenda item or a study session item, are necessarily in favor of it, but they are in favor of having a discussion on this. And I see that as not that all 7 of us and all previous city commissioners have novel ideas and things that we think are important to discuss, but having 2 people means that it's not just one person's idea, it's a person's idea that at least somebody else agrees should be discussed, but it doesn't reach the level of 3 different people, which if we only have 5 members present for a meeting, that's the majority.
That's a good point. Jackie?
I'm going to be the outlier here. I still see great value in retaining the option for an individual commissioner to bring something onto an agenda. I think that, a requirement for 2 or for 3 might be appropriate if you were looking at it through the lens of requiring staff support. But I have seen some really high-functioning decision-making processes where a concept can be brought forward by one person using their own resources. And to me, that's the definition of a study session. Hey, here's some information. Let me get some feedback from my colleagues here and decide whether any city resources should be allocated to exploring this further, if it should, take it into development, and then ultimately come back for an up or down, go or no-go decision once the details are fleshed out. So I see maybe an unmet need that we have to find a way to float innovative ideas without investing a lot of resources, but enough to, in public, in view of public, be able to gather feedback appropriately and help make an informed decision about whether to even take that and put resources against it. So I would almost see, it feels like our study sessions have set this high bar, and we're getting in-depth, educational information, and I would propose that maybe a study session is the ideal place to look at new ideas, at innovative approaches, at things that haven't been thought of before, but could be simply brought forward.
Heather's next.
Well, that's persuasive. For the study session, though, I almost, I totally agree. The study session is the place where you show up and you say, I have this idea, what do you think about it? But I almost think that two commissioners working together would bring more material to that study session, more ideas, might make it more profitable. I don't know. For the regular meetings, and to your point of how much staff time is needed for these agenda items, for regular meetings, if you don't, if I've got an idea and I don't coordinate with the city manager on how I want to get that idea on the new business agenda of a regular meeting, then there's not, what is there going to be? I mean, you're kind of sinking your own ship or shooting yourself in the foot. So I feel like if you've got an item that you want on the regular agenda, work with the city manager and make sure that some time has been put into that, so that the staff knows what you're talking about. For the study session, I don't think you need to do anything, because the commissioners themselves are presenting a topic of discussion. And well, that's what I have to say.
That's good. Ken, you put your hand up?
I was just going to agree with Commissioner Anderson in the fact that, like, for a study session, I can agree with Mitchell and Heather on this too, as far as, like, it's nice to have the collaboration and support of a second commissioner on something that you want brought forward, but at the same time, there's an important power to being a commissioner and being able to bring something forward on your own. I think that it's kind of important to preserve that.
So I was just going to say, I have no
I
idea,
don't
so I'm
bring
going to
things
speak over.
forward.
I would say, though, that one thing I want to point out in the context of this conversation is we just did our strategic planning and shared agreements, and we have laid out a lot, and Benjamin has told us many times about staff, what can we handle, where are we at, and what I have seen happen over the years with the rules, and this is where I kind of like the compromise of maybe two or something like that, is one commissioner can keep throwing things, innovative or not, onto agendas or make presentations to the public that then are assumed to be facts because they were presented at a city commission meeting. I've had many times where somebody says, well, you have to include affordable housing housing in a development of X size, right? Why aren't we doing that? Well, because one commissioner for many years repeated that, but it's against the law in the state of Michigan to do that. And so I do think that having a couple people involved puts a little bit of a partnership and a second pair of eyes on anything that comes forward, as well as we have, I don't think that we only have to follow the path laid out in the strategic plan, but we have been told that's even what we've already laid out in a plan that all of us worked on and the whole community worked on needs to be paced out. I think we have to be, I think two people allows us to think a little bit more about, hey, I've got this idea, we've already got all these things on the agenda and all these things piling up, and we now want to try and move this to the head of the line. Two commissioners says there's at least a couple of us that want to do that. One commissioner just doing that with this new direction that we're going in, I just have some thoughts that maybe it would make more sense. Again, like was said, it could be like I appreciate Mitch's analogy, like a second on an agenda. It could end up on there and the other person might say, now that we've talked about it, I actually don't want to do this, but at least it's showing a little bit more buy-in than one person when we're starting to get into demands on staff time or raising certain things to the top of the list by nature of making it a conversation, when we already kind of have this 1 to 3 year set plan that has had a lot of community input and a lot of commission input on it, that is kind of our guiding star. It doesn't mean there's not room for other things, but it also means that it's easy to say we have this guiding star we're following, and now we're just going to like lob roadblocks in the way, not many of them to be roadblocks, but that's essentially what they are because staff only has so much time. So I'm not saying I think that that's inherently one person doing that, but I think if we have 2 people on all of these, it makes study sessions easier to do, and it gives the regular agenda items at least another eye on it. But that's, we all have that. So I guess it sounds to me like, and Lance, sorry, Lance, you had your hand up. Go ahead, actually. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like the idea of 2 because I think any one of us in this room can go out and grab another commissioner who we know is going to be like, yep, that's important, and it should be on the agenda.
And
And it's the spirit of collaboration. And, it kind of forces us to talk to each other and collaborate just a little bit, just with one person, right? And it's in our shared agreements to collaborate on our items. And it also just kind of shows like, hey, there's a couple of us interested in this. Let's all listen, right? Let's all focus and put the attention to it that it needs.
And just to clarify on Lance's point for the public especially, it happens naturally that somebody might say, oh, I liked what you're saying about that. We should ask to have that on the agenda. However,
Yeah.
commissioners should not be round robining each other. We can always email the clerk. The clerk sends an email out to everybody. And the other thing might be you yourself want to put something out and find out 3 other commissioners wanted to talk about it too. And Sarah might be like, you all, help arrange that without allowing round robining to happen beforehand. Or might say, hey, Lance, Laura said she was interested in that too. You 2 could talk beforehand and talk about what you want on the agenda, but then it's going through a little bit more of a process. I'm just saying that for the
Fair.
for the Open Meetings Act of it all.
Yes,
So,
thank you. My bad.
so I guess my question would be before we go on is, sounds like we're having some discussion. So the key points that were just brought up, public speaking time, the number of commissioners it takes to call, and various things. And what was the other third one?
The
I forget.
time
Yeah,
of the agenda packet.
Timing of the agenda packet.
Publication, can I add one more thing on
Yeah.
that question? So right now, it's Thursday that we publish. So that gives you Friday and the weekend and Monday morning to review the packet. So do you want to
wanna
keep with
publish it earlier?
Thursday?
So let me ask this question of you, and especially in absence, not that Deb doesn't do an excellent job, but in absence of the city manager, would we want to, what I was going for was, would we want to bring these topics back with, you all have heard what we've had to say now, with recommendations based on what staff can do and what you've heard up here, and then have us discuss whether we want to take or not take action on any of them? Does that work for everybody? We can't take action tonight anyways.
Yes,
So,
but I'd like to understand a little bit more where Sarah was going with her comment. Were you suggesting an earlier publication?
yes.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting Friday.
Because I do think that if it's at all possible for staff, and again, we'd need the city manager at the table, and it might require changes with when we conduct agenda review. The more time, the better for any of us, and including staff, because I think about the time that it takes us as commissioners to get through an agenda packet, to formulate succinct questions to get to the city manager, for staff then to address the questions. And it is a real time crunch. And, if you send questions on a Monday morning,
Yeah.
that's a lot on staff to have to block out their schedules on a Monday morning. And so even an extra day, I think could really help with the public's ability to see the packets, and for our ability to get through it, come up with the questions that we have for staff, and do the most thorough job that we can do. So I would support an earlier release of the agenda.
Okay, Jackie and then Ken and Heather had their hands up. I do want to say, I think we will be bringing this back too, so but keep going, so.
I certainly support earlier publication, and I think an important part of that is allowing more time for public to see what we're going to be talking about and giving us their input. So I see that as a great value. I have another question, and that is, how did this item arrive on this study session's agenda? Were there 3 commissioner sponsors?
I believe that was the city
How
manager.
did we get here? It was the city manager?
It was the city manager.
Okay, great, thank you.
One person.
One
Ken, Heather, Mitch.
I was gonna, agenda review on Wednesday,
Mhm.
publishing by 5 PM on Thursday. Are you suggesting that we publish sooner, so is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, agenda
Yes.
review would get moved a day.
So
Oh, you
every-
would move it ahead
We,
of day?
yes,
Yeah.
we would have to move, so by moving the publication date, we would move agenda review. I would also have to move the deadline in which staff has to have items to me for inclusion on the agenda. So yeah, there's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, yeah,
So-
this is why I'd want input from the city manager and staff for that,
Maybe
yeah.
Deputy
Well, and
DeVoe.
I think, out of consideration, it would be helpful also to have an understanding that then the questions to staff would be submitted maybe by Friday noon.
Yes.
And that allows ample time, for staff to be able to provide adequate responses to really be able to help you in your decision-making.
Ken?
No, it's me.
No,
Oh, Heather,
that-
sorry, that was
yeah,
yours.
that's my
Sorry,
question.
you looked like you
Yeah.
had a second follow-up. Go ahead, Heather, yeah.
I'm not sure that making our publication date is going to help much at all. It's still going to end up with a Monday morning crunch. I think it would help to switch the planning commission meeting and the city commission meeting dates.
Isn't it in charter on Mondays?
Yes.
That's a
Heather's got a charter amendment. petition
ordinance.
going.
I think
Oh, is it
It's an ordinance.
It's an
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're still going to end up with a crunch on Monday. And, getting our questions in by Friday, what did you say, noon? on Friday?
Ideally.
Yeah. It takes me longer.
Honestly, that's the
It's-
best question, that's the
it's-
best suggestion we've had of this whole thing, would be to switch the meeting days, honestly, but.
Well, let's,
There-
hold
there
on,
are-
guys.
there are other
We are
boards
not
that
making,
actually said-
first of all, no decisions are made tonight. This is a study session, so we're all putting out information. That is something we can talk about too. But before we say yay or nay to anything, we're going to have that conversation in a meeting where we can actually vote. So let's keep this to things we'd like to see brought on it and suggestions. Mitch was next, then Jackie.
Yes. I appreciate having more time to review agendas and for staff to respond to questions, but I am cognizant that we all live busy lives. None of us have as our primary day job working for the city of Traverse City, aside from staff. So if I or somebody else is busy Thursday evening and Friday, they might not be able to read through the packet before then. Doesn't mean they can't have good questions, but there will be crunch time somewhere in the process, regardless of how it's done. I've had reporters ask me Thursday evenings about questions in the packet that I haven't even seen the packet yet. But also, I'm cognizant of the work that staff has to put in getting stuff ready for our agenda, and if they have their own timelines and grant requests can come in, and, oh, this thing has a 2-week deadline, and I have to give 10 days' notice to get it on the to get it on the agenda, that leaves them very little flexibility of how it fits in with their schedule.
Well, how staff put something in last minute is between the city manager and them. So they are not, but we have the policy of expectations of public disclosure, or not public disclosure, public publication.
Yeah. but-
Jackie, you,
Oh, it was just a plea to, before we look at switching Monday,
Yes.
Tuesday,
oh, God.
to look at the size of the packets for Planning Commission.
Yes.
And
Yes.
compare the two, when we're talking consistently 300, 400, 800-page
Yes.
packets. for planning, let us be alert to that.
Thank you for representing Planning Commission well here. And I will say, when we've had, I remember, and Art has escaped, but there was a 1,000-page document that we had to review when we started with the bunch of the projects that we're still working on now, and that was given to us like 2 weeks in advance. So I do know that staff can also make the effort when we have especially heavy lifts. So I think where we're at on this is all of those items. I would say if there's any other things that came up in the rules that maybe you'd like to look at, submit them to Sarah, and we will bring that back at a meeting when action could be taken, and we can deliberate a little bit more. We've had some good ideas here, but certainly I think we have to look at, and part of that conversation too would be rolling out, like, obviously, staff would need time to prepare for if we moved it and they suddenly had to have things ready earlier. We would all, with our scheduled meetings, have to see how long that would take to be realistically to change it. If Heather's idea catches fire to actually change our meeting dates, for 10 years now, I've not had Monday nights. I don't know if I could actually function if they flipped it. And Jackie makes an excellent point that planning really does need that time. So I think those are all things that we can debate. Yes, Laura?
Well, and we have light and power meetings also on
Yes, that's
Tuesday
true,
nights.
too. Yeah,
So there are other commission
But-
overlaps.
Yeah, we can have that as part of
Yeah.
our major discussion, so yeah. But
It
Mitch?
was a serious
Yeah.
It wasn't a bad idea.
Super serious.
It wasn't a bad idea, but we're hashing it out, so.
Yeah, one thing that was brought up but not really discussed is having a further out deadline for us to submit items. And one thing that I can understand is, okay, we always have our regular meetings on the first and third Monday of the month, except for next month when we're not having the first Monday because of Cherry Festival.
We're having, we're
The
looking on
first
6th.
Monday is July
We don't,
6th.
we don't have the first Monday of August because of the election, but we do have a July 6th, so you better be here, Mitch.
I was presenting that as sometimes we don't have one for scheduling reasons.
Right.
But we don't always have the second and fourth for study sessions. In this case, we had 4 items for the agenda, and that is, as we look at the time, a well-rounded meeting. But is there some procedure in place such that if we only have 2 commissioners bring 1 item forward, do we have to have a meeting for it at the next available time, or will it fit into a broader schedule?
Technically, the rules say that if it's requested and it's on a day, it has to be held that if the commission threshold is met. What happens when most commissioners, not all, because I've known commissioners that didn't, they usually are willing to work with the city manager to find a good slotted time so that they're not calling a meeting just for their own item. It has happened before in my tenure, but usually it doesn't. And so we could look at that as, well, we make our own rules, so that can be part of the discussion that we have. But I don't want us to get into splitting too many hairs because, as a whole, we are just trying to make this possible for us to have deliberations, but deliberations that are worthy, or that are worth good time and good consideration for the entire body and the entire public. So I think that's where we're at. Go ahead, Heather.
And I think we did have some head nodding consensus that if we could avoid a study session on the last month,
Yes.
the month that we were all
Yes.
in support of that.
Yes, so let's, yes. No one's nodding their head more than Sarah, so.
Not arguing.
Okay, so Sarah, you've got some notes there for what to bring back, where we're kind of at that, and the input that you've gotten, and
Yeah.
where we landed. Okay, so that is our final agenda item for the study session. We now will have public comment. This is general public comment. It can be on any of the items tonight or anything under the sun. So if anybody'd like to make public comment. Seeing some passing signs here. So any final comment from commissioners? All right, with that, thank you all. Have a great night. We did not beat the sunset, though.
Well, we both lost, didn't we?